Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week.
If I came into your office and broke my leg, you wouldn't say, come and sit down here, Clarke, I'll have a go at it. I watched Holby last night. You would call an ambulance.
We know the importance of giving someone or them earning a qualification so they can sit on the other side of this desk or this sofa having a cup of tea with someone and say, do you know what, I'm qualified in this actually.
It's not just the theory, it's the practical application and the way that you can set those boundaries so that you are not only looking after the person who is in need, but you're also taking care of yourself.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday. The home of the UK's conversation about mental health. Welcome to the programme. Thanks for checking out the podcast once again as we head ever closer to episode 300 of Mental Health Monday. Now, this week's guests are talking about a course and a certificate which they have set about setting up with a university with mental health in mind. That's why they're speaking to us. That course is designed to be an advanced certificate in mental health advocacy. And we'll be talking about what that means and how it can play an important part in how we speak to, deal with people who are going through a difficult time. So much has been said about workplace first aid from a mental health point of view, and it's so important that those measures are in place up and down the country. Indeed, I'm part of a campaign, the Where's Your Head At campaign, to ensure that all workplaces have somebody there who is a mental health first aider who can signpost to mental health services. What this course does is take that one step further to put in place a qualification, if you like, around mental health advocacy so that you know who to support, how to support, but also you know where those boundaries are as well. A lot of these things will be caught up in mental health first aid training, but this is something which is an official certificate, if you like. And I think as we move forward on this, you'd like to think that this sort of certification and qualification is something that people can embrace in the future, and actually that companies and organisations, educational establishments can see the benefit of for their establishment in the future, reducing sick days due to mental health concerns, having people who are qualified in the workplace to talk to staff before they need to take time off for a problem for whatever different reason. What's really, really interesting about this course, of course, is who set it up. Now, Clarke and Carrie Carlisle have been big friends of Mental Health Monday for quite some time. Clarke Carlisle is an ex-footballer. He played for Burnley, Leeds, York, Northampton, Preston, Blackpool. I've probably missed one. He was also the ex-chair of the PFA, and he's spoken about his own experiences from a mental health point of view. He's also spoken about his suicide attempts as well, and we've explored that in the past. He's been a really great advocate for talking about mental health, and Carrie is so committed to doing something with that experience, to ensuring that that experience and their experience as a family is not something just to put to one side. They're being proactive in this and have really driven this forward through the University of Central Lancashire. So Clarke and Carrie are our guests on the podcast this week. By the way, in the notes to the podcast, you can get a link to a news article that I've created about this story. That includes a link to the course, which you can sign up to now. You don't have to be a student at the university. You can be an organisation, various different ways you can get involved. Head to the notes section of the podcast to get the very latest. I put it to Clarke and Carrie that they should be very proud about how far they've come, and maybe that this course is part of that confirmation that they are so committed to this.
We have an advanced certificate. It's the only university accredited advanced certificate in essentially mental health advocacy. And we're very proud of it, aren't we? It's taken about 6 years from our dining room table to UCLan, so it's definitely one of a kind and very proud of it.
In terms of advocacy, sometimes people go, I'm a mental health advocate. Sometimes they put it on the Twitter bios, which kind of says, I'm mental health aware and I can have a conversation with you. When you want to then sort of put that down into something which is a certified being and a certified item, Clarke, what are the challenges then that you face there in terms of getting that right and making sure you're doing it the right way?
Oh, there are huge challenges, Mick, because what we find, exactly what you said, those people who put themselves down as advocates and they have a passion for helping others, invariably it's off the back of empathy and lived personal experience, and that's the driver to get into this space. And we saw with mental health first aiders, people going on a 2-day course and then they'll go back to their business and they're tasked with looking after the mental health and well-being of an entire organisation. But because all they have is empathy and a 2-day slideshow, they end up burning out and becoming service users themselves. So one of the things that we wanted to do, we wanted to take that passion and that empathy, but put alongside it some academic rigour. And the way that manifests itself and why it's so helpful is because across 2 semesters, there's 2 weeks worth of learning. The first week is the academic theory, which we think is fundamental, to understanding the whys and the wherefores around adverse mental health. But it's the second week that sets this course apart, and it's about the practical application of that. So not only do we have role plays where students come from the School of Drama or students come from student services who have lived experience and they will role play their presenting symptoms, and the people on the course, they will be filmed and assessed in how they interact, how they start the conversation, what their body language is like. But on top of that, and this is the most crucial part, they're taught how to establish those professional boundaries, because that's what's sadly lacking in mental health support nowadays. People are so passionate and enthusiastic that they don't seem to understand where their responsibility ends and the next level of services begin. And because they care so much, people end up, taking 2 a.m. drunk dials and they never switch off. So this is what I feel is one of the most crucial aspects of this course. It's not just the theory, it's the practical application and the way that you can set those boundaries so that you are not only looking after the person who is in need, but you're also taking care of yourself.
It strikes me, Carrie, that while we're also there's a lot of goodwill around people's attitudes towards mental health, and we've moved on so much in terms of that conversation. At the same time, as Clarke hints at, there needs to be boundaries, and I guess it's somebody's job to come up and work out what those boundaries are. You've sort of come up with your own ideas about what those boundaries are. Do you think that people will respond to that positively and understand the framework you're trying to create?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the fact that I've got a background in academia, but we're not just, this is not classroom based. This is, people say, the University of Life, but we've tried and tested all of this. We've spoken in front of 1 million people face to face. We've spoken in front of, I don't even know how many million, not just on TV, but, our platforms, we're very lucky because people do give us these lovely platforms, and so people then ask us questions, and we have really had an intensive 5 or 6 years of being submerged into this ourselves. We like solving problems. We do. It's satisfying to solve our own problems first with the help of professionals. But then seeing how mental health first aid has evolved alongside that, and then because we work in the corporate space so much, seeing this burnout that Clarke's referred to, we're very practical by nature. We're both Northerners, and we're very practical by nature, and also just awful communicators. So as we've learned this confidence, competence, and then compassion for ourselves and the people around us, that's what this is full of. It's about humanity. It's about saying, I like myself enough to know that this is where it stops. It's about saying, do you know what, my phone isn't always on, but the Samaritans is. And having an advanced certificate and owning that. Clarke knows that. And a lot of athletes that leave school at 16 and go straight into a great life, but a life that isn't academic, there's always that sense, isn't there, of, should I have a qualification in this? Should I have a qualification in that? We know the importance of giving someone or them earning a qualification so they can sit on the other side of this desk or this sofa having a cup of tea with someone and say, do you know what, I'm qualified in this actually. I'm qualified and I have confidence and you can trust me. You can trust me to point you in the right direction. I'm just going to point you there. I'm just going to hold your hand and take you there. I'm not going to get well for you. So this is all based in our practical experience with a very important combination of asking the right experts. And that's who they're being taught by. Just marvellous experts, really.
Where does it live in terms of that sort of university sphere? Obviously, people will associate sports with yourself, Clarke, but then of course this is going to be valuable for anyone on any course. So how will people interact with this, and how will people sort of move in the direction of it?
Well, it's open for all learning, all application, and this is why, we're trying to push the message far and wide. Anyone who's currently in employment, working with people, this is good for you. If you're working in HR and employee management, this is perfect for you. And the great thing about it is that because it's 60 credits, it's an advanced certificate, it can form a fundamental part of anyone's CPD as they're going on in the workplace. Or if you're already in studies, you can actually tag it on to your studies as an extra couple of modules. So it's actually, we've tried to make it as flexible and malleable as possible so that it can fit in with every working or study life, because mental health is a human being issue. It doesn't matter where you are. We wanted this to apply, and the work that Jen Dayton and Dr. Jackie Day Garner have done at UCLan has been absolutely outstanding. Yeah. They more than just catering for the individual, Mick. This is what I think is brilliant. Let's say you guys there at Bauer or at City FM, you wanted to put your whole department through this, your whole HR department. They have the opportunity to bespoke the learning so that it's not just generic signs and symptoms and situations that you'll be practicing. We will tailor them specifically to your workplace and your working issues. So it's so flexible, right from the micro individual to the macro organisation. This course will fit.
It will, and there are people that have already gained a little bit of confidence, mental health first aiders. We love to have mental health first aiders, well-being managers, well-being officers. We'd love to see them. Just health and safety officers at work are our absolute ideal. We think they're brilliant because they already know the rules of physical safety. But anyone that has the spark in them, anyone that feels it and goes, oh, actually, that's for me, that's interesting. Don't talk yourself out of it. Just come and have a chat. Like, really, because we always do that. Oh, well, do I deserve to, invest the time in me? Yeah, you do, actually. We all do. So if it piques your attention, then it's for you. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Go do another one.
And I was going to ask you about it, because some people might go, oh, I've done this first aid course and I thought it was quite interesting, or I quite enjoyed getting a certificate. Maybe there's an opportunity for deeper learning there. There's obviously a career development issue there, but also it's good for your wider organisation. So fingers crossed that people will benefit from that and sort of take a step towards it, thinking about it in those terms as well. Do you think as well we're moving in this direction, that actually this sort of the idea that it's certified, that actually businesses in the future will need to show that they've got people literally qualified to be in these positions?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Mick, because mental health care and support is only just catching up with physical health, like Carrie said, the health and safety officers. And if you have a look at the Health and Safety Act 1979, it's in there in black and white. Any impairment of a person's physical or psychological being constitutes a workplace injury. So all of the things that we do with regards to physical health and safety at work, the training, supervision, putting all the policy up and revising it on an annual basis, it's mandatory, isn't it, for physical health? You can't go up a ladder or lift a box at work without your training. But for some reason at the moment with mental health, it's still optional and voluntary and tacked on to someone's day role. And we're just coming through this transition now where people are understanding that having compassion or passion for mental health isn't establishing the framework and the competencies for people to do that role properly. And when people do that role incorrectly, it can actually have an adverse effect on the person they're trying to help and also that person themselves. So yeah, we are on the curve now to making sure that people in these roles are adequately qualified in the competencies of advocacy. And that's what we can and should have advocates everywhere. We're not expecting everyone to be trained counsellors and therapists. That's a separate part of external service that's only required at certain points. but to be a competent and confident advocate, that's of fundamental importance to every workplace.
What we found as well from doing so many talks and meeting so many different people, there's almost a reluctance to admit, do you know what, talking about mental health at work isn't for me. Say you're a manager, for instance, but you're not a particularly pastoral person, or, you know, we've got an autistic daughter, a lot of neurodivergent group of people, neurodivergent people, they find it quite alarming to have to talk in that way, and we don't feel that everyone should have to be gaslit into thinking I need to be up on this. Actually, you don't. If you're a really good person that's really good with figures, or you're really good at organising or whatever, but you're just not a people person, have one person in your department that is, have one person that can signpost, because we're seeing people having burnout because they're not naturally, they're having to almost mask to pretend to talk about people's feelings. It shouldn't have to happen at work 24/7. Work isn't therapy. Therapy is therapy. So let's signpost people to therapy.
Can I ask you about the sort of the theory side of it and then the practical side of it? And I think this is where this course in particular stands out as something that's really interesting, because a lot of people, you can sit through the theory, and if this conversation, then you should have this conversation, it's based on this psychological study or whatever it is, and you can learn all that. But if somebody then comes to you in a distressed state or with a story to tell, they don't quite know how to tell that story, and it's sort of your part of your role to find out really what's going on. Goodness me, like, if you've never been in that scenario before, that can be quite a moment for you, you know, in terms of turning all that theory into practice. I guess with the course providing that platform to practice that and have a sort of a lived experience coming your way in a safe environment must be hugely beneficial to the people who are doing it. And I know you guys do talks all the time, so people after the talks will hear the theory of your talk, but then they'll come to you and they'll talk about their personal problems. And it happens with myself where people will hear me or see me do a thing, then they'll come then I have to be ready to sort of deal with that or signpost accordingly. And it's sometimes a bit of a shock, because you're thinking, I've never met you before, I don't know anything about you, but suddenly your deepest, darkest thoughts are on me, and I'm expected to handle them in some way, shape, or form that is responsible. And when that does happen, I feel like now I've kind of got the equipment to be able to sort of do the right thing. But it's a shock when it first happens, and you suddenly realize how much of their pressures fall onto you.
Well, that's the importance of what this is going to teach people, because when we talk about mental health, then invariably we're going to talk about people managing other people's crises, trauma, etc., etc. It's very emotive. And if we don't have a framework about managing those situations, then, like you said, their emotions leach to us, and our fears and anxieties leach to those who we're trying to care for. What this course does is it breaks it down into a framework for that person trying to care that's as simplistic as a physical health support framework. You know, if I came into your offices and I just scalded my finger on a kettle, you wouldn't call an ambulance immediately. You know, you say, oh, let's run that under the water. We've got a first aid kit here, etc. Because you know clearly this is a self-care issue. If I came into your office and broke my leg, you wouldn't say, come and sit down here, Clarke, I'll have a go at it. I watched Holby last night. You would call an ambulance, because it's very clear to you that this is where my responsibility and self-care ends, and professional services are required. Equally, in that moment, you wouldn't send me to a GP with a broken leg. You would know that that's an ambulance moment and I need to go to A&E. Now, this is a framework that we're going to put around adverse mental health and presenting signs and symptoms. So there won't be fear in you about what's presented to you, because you will understand exactly, you know, with general, slightly movable boundaries, but you'll understand what constitutes a chat and a cup of tea and a biscuit, what constitutes actually you need to go to and speak to some professional listening services, actually you need to go to your GP, actually this is a crisis moment and we need to take you to either a therapist, a counsellor, or maybe even A&E. So once you've got that clear delineation, it takes the fear and the anxiety away from the person supporting, because there's no doubt in your mind. All you have to do is confidently signpost that person to the service that's required, and it takes that emotive load out of the situation for you, Mick.
You hinted at it before, but let's just recap on it. So it's the Collaborative Health and Mind Programme at the University of Central Lancashire. Some people going, oh, my student days are behind me. But you hinted at it before. If you are a local organisation, if you are out in the workplace, you can sign up to this course without having to enroll at university and go through the full 3 years of university. I've done that myself. I probably wouldn't want to go through it again, but you could do this as almost like a part-time thing, a work-related thing. You don't have to be sort of officially enrolled as a student and 18 years of age going into university.
Yeah, that's exactly that. It's 2 weeks split over 2 semesters. So it'll be 1 week of learning at the university in semester 1, 1 week of learning at the university in semester 2. And it was crucially important to us that this learning was face-to-face, especially in the practical application. You know, if you're going to learn and practice human interaction, we can't do it, you know, in this virtual space or online through a form. You know, we have to be physically in the room. And also, like you said, because there may well be some emotive situations, we've got the specialist, Jen Dayton and her team there to help manage the individual along their learning. Because coming back full circle, most people's interest is because of empathy, lived experience. So while we're practicing these scenarios, if anything triggers, we know that we've got the confident and competent professionals on hand to guide and assist through those situations.
There's more on the website, uclan.ac.uk. That's the University of Central Lancashire website, uclan.ac.uk. And the course sign-ups are available now. You can get on board with Clarke and Carrie's Collaborative Health and Mind Programme, which just so happens to also spell the word champ. Thank you for both being champs with us today, and really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Mick.
Thanks, Mick. God bless.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.